Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today, Partnering with Financial Institutions. This is one of a series that we put on the AFI Virtual Coffee webinar series, and we're really excited to have you all join us today. All right. So my name is Megan Bellato. I'm a Senior Program Manager here at CFED, and you're also going to be able to hear from many fellow grantees from around the country. Guest speakers will be presenting a little bit later. We have Mindy with the Southern Bancorp Community Partners, Amber Miller with Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative Corporation, Camille Cuentas with Catholic Charities Diocese of Camden, and David Miller at Juma Ventures. We're really excited to have these grantees join us today and present on their lessons and best practices and tips and ideas around partnering with financial institutions to support your AFI grants, and we'll hear from them all a little bit later. Before we get started, I'd like to go over just a few housekeeping items. You do have the choice of dialing in with your phone or listening to the webinar through your computer. Please do select the appropriate audio option on the GoToWebinar control panel. You can ask a question at any time by using the chat box on your GoToWebinar control panel or by raising your hands to request to be unmuted. If you're watching this live and experience any technical difficulties, please type a question into the GoToWebinar interface or email us at slandry@cfed.org and we'll help you to troubleshoot them. Please do keep in mind that this webinar is being recorded. We've muted all attendees to ensure sound quality, so if you have any questions or issues, go ahead and type them into the query box right there. We will make a recording and transcript of this presentation available on the AFI Resources website. That address is right there on your screen, idaresources.acf.hhs.gov. It'll be available at a little bit of a later date. This webinar is not going to be lasting 90 minutes. This webinar will last approximately 60 minutes, and there's going to be plenty of time for Q&A at the end. Please feel free to type in your questions using the box at any time. As you know, we really do want these to be as interactive as possible. We want, this is an opportunity for you all as grantees to hear from each other, to troubleshoot any questions, to share any lessons, tips, anything that you think might be helpful. And so we definitely want you to take advantage of those chat boxes, type in your questions. Please do feel comfortable participating. All right. So let's get started. Our objectives for today, the primary objectives, are to learn about financial institutions and how to use their products for your AFI project. We would like for you all to learn about fellow grantee experiences and challenges in partnering with financial institutions, so that's where we're going to hear from our panelists a little bit later. And we'll be discussing strategies and resources that are useful for obtaining and maintaining strong financial institutional partnerships. Before we get started, just a few questions for you. All right, so first we're going to ask you all a few questions. We like to start these webinars out with a few questions for our audience so that we understand who's in the room, who's listening, what your level of experience is, all of that good stuff. So we'll be launching a few polls shortly. Please take a moment and answer our questions. So our first question here is, what is your level of experience with managing an AFI project? So are you a beginner, so less than a year, intermediate, 2 to 3 years, or advanced, 4 or more years? All right, great. So it looks like we have a good mix in here. A few of you are beginners. We've got a few intermediates and a couple of advanced, so that's great to hear. Thanks so much. All right, our next question. What is your role with your AFI project? What is your role at your organization related to your AFI project? So are you an executive director? Are you a program coordinator or manager? Are you a data manager, a case manager, or something else? And if you have a totally different role that's not listed on here, please go ahead and type that into the chat box. Give you guys just a moment to answer that question. All right, great. Thank you so much. So it looks like we've got quite a few program managers and coordinators and a data manager in here, so good mix of folks. Thank you so much. All right. So our next question, do you have a relationship with a financial institution to support delivering your AFI grant? So that's not a poll question. That's just if you want to just go ahead and type your answers there into the chat box so that we can understand kind of where you guys are in terms of your relationships. That'd be great. Excellent. Looks like we have a few folks here that do have, quite a few of you do have relationships. We've got some with multiple banks. I see a five banks credit union, seeing some national banks and some local and regional banks. Fantastic. Really great mix of folks here. So thank you so much for answering that. And then one final question. Where are you in your AFI grant project life cycle? So are you in the midst of project design? Are you in the midst of recruiting and enrolling participants? Are you supporting your savers as they actively save? Are you helping savers to get to that asset purchase? Are they making asset purchases? Or are you in the middle of grant closeout? Keep in mind you can select multiple parts of this, so it doesn't just have to be one. I'll give you guys just a moment to answer that question. All right, great. So it looks like nobody's in the project design phase, so that's great. We've got quite a few recruiting and enrolling participants and supporting savings. And then we've got some who are already at the place where you're helping your savers to make asset purchases. So that is fantastic. That's really great. All right, thanks for going through those questions with us. That's really helpful as we move through the slides. Let's get into the content now. So there are four main types of financial institutions that you may find in your communities. Four main types of financial institutions that you may find in your communities: national banks, regional and community banks, credit unions, and community development credit unions. These different financial institutions have important similarities and differences that may impact their interest and capacity to work with your AFI program. Some major things to think about. There are some benefits to national and regional banks. They are often larger and may have capacity to open more accounts. There are also some challenges. They may have a more decentralized decision-making and may or may not be used to working with your target population. In general, credit unions will have mission alignment and are usually have more experience working with low and moderate income populations. However, they also may be smaller and have less capacity to open large amounts of accounts if you have a large grant. So let's dive in here. National banks operate in multiple states with decisions being made at the headquarters. Because they are larger, local branch staff aren't typically able to make decisions about products or enrollment processes. The larger size does position them to be able to support high volume enrollment into accounts, and they may have more branches available. Regional and community banks operate in limited or a specific region of the country. Because they're smaller and their decision makers may be local, they may be more likely to have flexibility to adjust their products and enrollment processes. In particular, they may have the flexibility to adjust their account types. They may be more likely than national banks also to focus on the needs of your specific sub-community, but may not have a special focus on lower income. Credit unions operate on a smaller scale than most national banks and often have more decision-making capabilities at the local level. People who open accounts become members. Credit unions are nonprofit organizations with specific mission focused on their members. Generally, they are more flexible because they exist to meet the needs of their community, and they are also typically smaller institutions which allow them to more directly connect with the local community. Finally, community development credit unions are credit unions that have a mission of serving low and moderate income communities. While all credit unions are nonprofits, CDCUs are specialized specialize in serving populations with limited access to safe financial services, including low-income wage earners, recent immigrants, and people with disabilities, and typically offer financial products tailored specifically to meet the needs of these populations. Their smaller size, however, may mean that they have less capacity to support high-volume enrollment. I'm going to pause right there. Does anybody have any questions? You can go ahead and type them into the question box. A lot of information there. And again, these slides will be available online, so you can access all of this information a little bit later on if you need to. All right. So the FDIC has outlined the features of safe accounts that facilitate account opening for underserved populations. This list could be a really good starting point. These accounts offer transparent rates and fees that are reasonable and proportional to cost, access to banking services that feature FDIC insurance, and the protections afforded by applicable federal and state and consumer protection laws, regulations, and guidelines. You might want to take a little bit and look at some of those qualities there that you see on the screen. Low cost or free services. They allow for a low opening balance, no overdraft fees. They do accept alternative IDs, free savings accounts, and account transfers. So a lot of really good features to be thinking about when you're thinking about your financial capability institution partner. So, sort of an open question for the group. What do you look for in a financial institutional partnership? If you want to just go ahead and type, anything in the box that is specific to your AFI IEA program or ideas you might have about what would be good to look for in a financial institutional partnership, that'd be great. I'll give you all just a moment to do that. All right, a lot of good answers coming in here. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of folks identify locations, so you'll definitely want to select, depending on whether you're in a more rural or urban area, you'll definitely want to select a financial institutional partner that's going to be easily accessible for your clients, so not, maybe a couple branches, or if you're in one town, maybe sort of a main branch or a centralized location. I see a lot of people talking about banks that don't charge fees. That's definitely key when you're working with a low-income population and you want to, help them support their savings progress and their savings habits. You definitely want to make sure that the bank is not taking away from all this money that they're working hard to save. So if you can get the fees down, that's always a great thing to look for in a partnership. What you want the bank also, I'm seeing a lot of stuff about the types of accounts. So it's certainly critical for an AFI financial institutional partner to be willing and able to open accounts that are accessible by you, the grantee, and the client, but that the client is not able to withdraw money from that without you. So those are, custodial accounts, or there's a variety of different names for them, but you want to make sure that you have access to those savings accounts, that you can keep track of what your savers are putting in and making sure that they're not withdrawing money without making a qualified purchase. And then I like this one. There's one here about bilingual. So if you're working with populations that maybe English is not their first language, you may want to look for a financial institutional partner that will, sort of cater to those needs and be able and comfortable and familiar with your target clients, outside of language. But maybe if you're working with youth, or if you're working with new immigrants, want to make sure that your financial institution is going to be friendly and accessible in a variety of ways to your clients. Thanks so much, guys. These are really great. All right. So a few quick tips around setting up a partnership, just some general best practices. You'll want to do a community field scan, see what's there, what's available in the community, what financial institutions are there, kind of, what are the pros and cons of each of them. You'll want to reach out to a financial institution that best meets your client's needs, just some of the things that we were just talking about, like accessible, are going to be friendly and approachable for your clients, are going to be comfortable working with your target population, and your target population is going to be comfortable working with that financial institution. Again, you'll want to ask them about their account features, fees, data sharing, minimum balance, etc. Definitely want to make sure that if you can, you want your financial institution to be able to electronically share data on balances and deposits with you. So that can very, very quickly or very easily increase your capacity, right? If you are not having to spend time doing manual data entry and opening up envelopes with balances every month from the bank, if they can just send that electronically over, all that information, you can kind of upload it into a Excel or whatever your database system is. That could be really, really great. It can really save a lot of time and headaches. And then finally, definitely a good practice to develop an MOU with your financial institution, something that just sort of spells out the agreement, the arrangement, has, a couple points of contact just in case there is, any turnover, anything like that, but that really clearly explains kind of what your relationship is, what the type of accounts are that the bank is holding for you all. So really good idea to develop an MOU, get both parties to sign it, and keep multiple copies around so you can quickly access it if there's any questions. All right. So just a few questions that we're going to cover here with the panelists. So we're about to turn over to our other grantees, and they're going to share kind of their experiences. But think about these questions as you're listening to them talk. So how did they find the financial institution that they currently work with? What steps did they take to set the partnership up? How did they develop their MOU, and how did they use it to maintain their partnership? How do their clients perceive the financial institution before and after they open their account? And how do you prepare clients to engage with the financial institution? So our panelists are going to be covering some of these topics, but be thinking about this as you're listening, and feel free to type in questions. We're probably going to save some time at the end for open Q&A, but definitely ask questions anytime. Go ahead and type them in the chat box or raise your hand. All right, so now I'd like to introduce my first panelist, and that's going to be Catholic Charities. We've got Camille on the line.
Much support coming from the staff at that particular branch. Many of the clients enrolled at that time just wasn't happy with their banking experience there. So when we were funded for that second grant in 2013, when we began partnering with TD Bank, another national bank, and a more developed partnership agreement was established with them. They provided us with a lot of incentives, such as waived maintenance and counter check fees, and the ability to deposit at any TD branch. And each account is also interest-bearing. And TD Bank in the Diocese of Camden is pretty convenient for all of our clients because they're each, there's a lot in each county. And then the last thing I wanted to share about our experience with TD Bank is that when our IDA clients go to open a new account, we send them to the particular branch that we created the partnership with in Camden, and we send them with a letter of acceptance and authorization to open the IDA. And so this letter includes the bank's address, where to go, if they have any issues opening the account, the branch manager's information, and then as well as mine. But what's been beneficial there is that the branch manager has made all of our staff aware of the IDA program, how it works. We did come into an issue recently where I was noticing some of the IDA accounts were getting charged maintenance fees, and so I had called the staff, and they were aware of it, and they immediately fixed it, and then even created a block on all the IDA accounts to avoid this issue in the future. And so overall, I would say that our experience at TD Bank has been great. They provide us with quarterly statements for each account, and easily assist me whenever I call. So it's and our clients as well. I've heard great feedback being able to bank with them, and some even after finishing in the IDA program, they continue to bank with TD. So, and that's all I have. And on the last slide, I have my contact information if anyone has any personal questions.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Camille. That was a great overview of what you guys do in your story. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. If anyone has questions, you can go ahead and type them into the chat box. I think what we're going to do is move through our presenters, but we'll keep the Q&A at the end. So we'll collect them all, but if you guys just want to type any questions or comments, if you have a similar story to share or anything like that, go ahead and type that into the chat box. And in the meantime, we will move on to our next presenter. Thank you again, Camille. All right, up next we have David from Juma Ventures.
Hi.
Hey, David. How are you? We can hear you now.
Great. Doing well. Hope everyone's doing well out there. Thank you so much for inviting us to be on this call today. I think we can go to the first slide, if that's all right. So just some background on me. I'm David Miller. I'm the Savings Program Manager for Juma. I've been working with Juma for a little over a year, and I'm responsible for managing our match savings program, as well as our financial literacy, education, and financial coaching programs. As for Juma, Juma is a national youth development organization. We work to employ thousands of youth across the country and help them get a first job and secure permanent employment or post-secondary education. This slide just has some basic information about our organization, including that we were founded in 1993. We employ over 1,100 youth each year in 9 cities across the country and over 20 different social enterprises, which are ordinarily stadiums and other large venues. Annually, we currently, well, in the last year, we had over 1.6 million in youth wages earned. In 2017, including match, our youth were able to save $1.9 million. For our IDA program, we add about 160 new IDA accounts each year, and we have 665 accounts open now. And then on the next slide is just an overview of Juma's model. So it's Earn, Learn, Save. The Earn is the job that they work for Juma. On the Learn side, we give them career support and educational access support, so helping them sign up, fill out their college applications, take tests. We give them tutoring support and mentoring support. And then on the Save side, max savings accounts and financial capability programs. And then next slide. So Juma actually is one of the earliest organizations to offer IDAs to youth. We started in 1999. Our college-bound youth receive educational IDAs only, with savings goals up to $1,000. And Juma staff make purchases on behalf of the youth to make sure that those funds are used for educational expenses. And then some just general goals, or I guess some guidance that we use in managing our relationship. So Juma works with Citibank to offer our IDA program. We worked with Citibank since about the mid-2000s. And what we found, there are maybe 3 main things that we found that are useful in maintaining that relationship. So the first is that you need to understand your partner. Citibank is a financial institution, and financial institutions are organized and managed very differently than nonprofits. Juma is a social enterprise, so we're run very much similarly to business, which gives us some benefit in being a little more familiar with the way that they're run and the way that they communicate, but there's still a lot of differences. And so it's important to take the time to understand how they work and function and what they're thinking in order to maintain a really successful relationship, and understand that even though they think differently, or that there might be good reason for our clients to be skeptical of them, that doesn't mean that there isn't still room for a partnership. It just means that you have to understand where they're coming from and what risks are involved in any relationship and how to manage those. The second thing is to know the value of your program, not just to your clients and to your own organization, but also for the financial institution partner itself. So being able to communicate what the value proposition is for them, whether there's a law that they need to be in adherence to in supporting income or low-income communities, or whatever else it provides them, being able to communicate the value to them and understanding and showing that you understand what their situation is and what kind of questions they're going to be looking at when they're trying to make decisions and how they're going to support you can go a long way. It doesn't mean that you need to sacrifice your values at all. It's all about communicating. And so that's really the third point, is just speaking a language. So just knowing how to communicate with them, knowing what kind of conversations they have and how they speak and think about things can be really beneficial. So being able to translate what you're looking at on the ground and the issues that you see, and being able to translate into something that they can understand. Because obviously what we found is Citibank is a really large national bank, and there are a lot of competing interests within the organization. And so sometimes you have to give your contact support in being able to advocate for your program, right? Because they might be trying to help your program, but they have a lot of other pressures on them. So if you can help them, if you can help communicate to them the value of the program and what you're doing, it makes their lives easier, it makes their job easier when they're trying to defend any support that they're giving your organization. So just think strategically and try to be understanding of where they're coming from. I think always is a good tool to maintaining a relationship. And then on those questions earlier that you posted, we have had a relationship with Citibank for just a very long time. They were one of Juma's earlier supporters, and so that's sort of a idiosyncratic situation. And then our relationship really just comes out of, we have biweekly and bi-monthly calls. We help involve them in our process and our design process for our program. And we just really just try to include them as much as possible so that they feel that they have a role and an investment in our program. And we found that to be very beneficial. So we've actually partnered with Citi not just on our IDA program, but also we, for a while, were serving as a custodian for a children's savings account program for Children's Aid Society of New York. And that was through our partnership with Citi that we became part of that organization, became part of that project. The specifics of our relationship, we have escrow accounts for our youth. We have admin access to Citi Business Online, so we just have continual access to information that we need for youth accounts, and there's no minimum balance for any of those accounts. So it is a relationship that works really well for us. Administratively, it's very easy to deal with any constraints. There's very few. And so, but one thing about that is that our clients actually don't really have any exposure to Citibank for the most part, because we are holding the accounts in escrow, so they don't have much exposure. So we actually partner with other financial institutions to offer financial literacy training, and we'll work with them to set our youth uplift accounts through those organizations or through local credit unions like Self-Help Federal Credit Union, which is based in San Francisco. And that way we find that we can give our youth an option in whatever accounts they end up opening in their own name, so that when they leave the program or if they need to establish an additional financial product, they can open one of those accounts on their own. And we prepare our youth to be able to interact with financial institutions capably through our financial literacy training, which is both online and with in-person workshops. So I think that's it for me.
That's great, David. Thank you so much. That was really great information, and I hope that everybody took a lot away from kind of some of those lessons learned about partnering with a large international bank like Citi. If you have connections, great, but there are a lot of there's a lot of lessons that can be taken away from that, and I do think that it's interesting that you guys have multiple financial institutions and you have the large one that's sort of your backer and that you partner with on a variety of things, but then you also have these smaller local credit unions and banks that that can support your youth, and where your youth can feel more comfortable kind of building that relationship instead of walking into a large, kind of big brand bank. So that's fascinating, and thank you so much for these insights. I really appreciate that. All right, so moving on to our next panelist, Amber, can you hear us?
I can. So I am Amber Miller. I'm the Regional Project Director for the Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative Corporation, also known as WItek. And we are celebrating our 30th anniversary this year, and we have offices in Wisconsin. So I'm in our Milwaukee office, which is our largest office. We also have 3 other offices within the state. And we have actually been funded by AFI since 2003. So we've been long established with helping people open their IDA accounts. Our biggest partner right now that actually funds the matching would be the Housing Authority City of Milwaukee, so that's who we partner with. About over 1,500 graduates from the Make Your Money Talk series, which is our financial education. We're going to be closing on our 145th home next week, and over 100 people have attended college. 95 people have opened or expanded their business. Right now, currently in the program, we have about 135 active IDAs. Next slide. Mine's a little shorter. So right now, our main relationship is with BMO Harris Bank, which is also a national bank. It was originally M&I Bank in the Milwaukee area, and then they were bought out. But they were, because we had this really strong relationship since 2003, they ended up keeping on the IDA program. But the one thing that I recommend is definitely pick a bank that has several locations, and that's also on a bus line for the clients that don't have transportation. Also weekend hours, of course, and also if they do have some evening hours available for the IDA clients who work during the day. It was also really important for us to pick a financial institution that had a similar mission to WItek, so helping low-income individuals with hope and opportunity. So this was the bank that we chose. We did do a formal MOU, but once again, we've been partnering with them since 2003, so we have great communication. They've actually come to ribbon cutting ceremonies for some of our houses. They've attended graduation, so it just really means a lot for the bank to also participate in the success for the client. Also just making sure, you know, are they set up to do the custodial accounts? I know the gentleman who was just speaking, sometimes the banks and financial institutions don't realize that it's a custodial account for an adult. So just walking them through that process. Can they also, once again, meet the needs of the clients? Do they have flexibility and availability to make sure that your client is taken care of? Do they waive the fees? Once again, if the clients go below a certain balance. We did have that a few years back when the bank was then to BMO Harris, and they worked with us to ensure that all the fees were taken care of. We're also very lucky because BMO Harris Bank actually talks to our system, which is Outcome Tracker. So anytime a client makes a deposit, a withdraw, it actually will update to our system daily. So we don't have to do any data entry, which is really nice, just because when you have over 135 clients, that can be a lot of data entry. And then once again with the outcome tracker, and then just making sure that that you have the good communication. If a client has an issue, making sure that they're taken care of. And then also BMO Harris has been kind enough to still open accounts for our clients that are in check systems. So they don't want to be a barrier to any of our clients in order to open their IDA. Thank you.
That was really great. Thank you so much for sharing that information. And I am so excited to hear, you're the first grantee of probably hundreds that I've spoken to over the years that has a relationship with the financial institution where your actually the information is automatically updated into Outcome Tracker. So that is really, really cool. We've addressed
It actually does save us about 10 hours of data entry a month, if not more. So it's and we just started doing it within the last 2 years. So it's definitely recommended.
That is incredible. Absolutely. I love that. And, we've had other webinars in the past on sort of data entry and collecting and making sure you understand what's going on with the accounts. So that's really cool. I'm interested to hear about that. Thank you so much. Keep your questions coming in. We've got some good questions. I promise we're going to address them all. But right now I want to hear from our final panelist at Southern Bancorp Community Partners. Mindy, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, great. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm the program consultant for our IDA program, and you can go to the next slide, and I'll just talk more about myself later. So we were founded in 1986, and this just gives like a little bit of overview. And the 80,000 customers, we're kind of a different organization because we're like a sister to a for-profit bank. And so whenever we say that we have these locations, we actually
can touch these people with our services that we have, because we cover all of Arkansas and all of Mississippi, which is a whole lot. But they can be served and get information about the IDA program, but that's just a little background of our organization as a whole. Next slide. And then our goal is to work with the unbanked or the underbanked. And so you see we kind of have a challenge in Arkansas and Mississippi because the and underbanked are pretty high compared to the national average. Next slide. And we received our first AFI grant in 2000. I have worked for the IDA program since 2002, so I wasn't too much far hired after that. We've ran an IDA program since 1999, and in fact, in the state of Arkansas, my former director helped write the law for it, so that's pretty cool. But 50% of our IDA participants were either unbanked or underbanked. We've had 605 AFI participants successfully complete the program, and now we have 100 that are currently saving. And the only reason we have 100 is because our grant actually ended. Well, it'll end in September, so we're kind of, I guess, getting toward closeout in ours. Next slide. So on this slide, I have the three main things, and I think the other panelists have emphasized this. In the past, we've had over 13 bank partnerships, and to say the least, it was a nightmare for data and gathering information and getting banks to work willingly and not make the enrollment process so hard for participants or even the closeout process. So what we do now is, since we are a sister organization to a bank, then people come to Southern Bancorp Bank, which we're located from Arkadelphia, Arkansas to Picayune, Mississippi. So they go to one of our bank locations and open the account, and this is just done by email. They'll say, I'll tell them that they're coming in, and then the person will open the account and let me know they did. And then electronic statements, we do the same thing with Outcome Tracker. We get the statements uploaded at the end of the month, so we don't have hardly any data entry to do. So that saves a whole lot of time, because for a long time we just had Miss Ida system. And then communication is an important part. Even with our unique situation with our bank partner, we still have to let people know the process, the tellers, the new accounts people, so they're familiar with when people enroll, the purpose of the program, and then also the necessity for them to help the person understand when they come to make a withdrawal, or if they make a deposit, to kind of, push them toward their goal of what they're doing. But those are just the main takeaways that we've had over all of our years, just to limit your partnerships, just to make it easier on yourself, unless you just have all awesome partnerships. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. That was really great. That was an excellent overview. So attendees, you've heard now from three different panelists, three different grantees like yourselves, who have very different sort of structures and very different relationships with their financial institutional partners. But I think we heard a lot of the similar sort of tips across the board. So I want to make sure that whatever financial institution you choose is geographically convenient to your clients, but also is used to maybe working with your clients, or that that they're going to be, they've been prepped enough, you've talked to them enough, and they're willing to go the extra mile to sort of talk with your clients, provide that good customer service, provide a safe space. So all of that, be accessible in many different ways and meet your clients where they are, so that they can continue with their savings all the way to purchase. So that's a really good pillar. Another one is to think about a financial institution that is going to structurally work with with your AFI IDA account. So are they going to be able to set up those custodial accounts? Do they understand what that is? Do they know? Are they going to be willing to give you access? Are they going to be willing to waive fees and keep fees down for your savers? Are they going to be willing to send the information over to you electronically and sit down? Are they going to be willing to sign that MOU? And so I think there's a lot of really good key thoughts to have in terms of identifying who that strong financial partner is going to be. I did want to open up the floor now for a few questions. I've got a couple here that I just want to address, and some of these are specific to panelists, and some I'm going to kind of start off with. So we have one here that says, okay, so we've got one about accounts. So from Leon, you've been told that custodial accounts are not allowed for adults, a federal requirement. So I'm curious, I'm curious, Leon, if you could share and type in the chat box who told you that there was a federal requirement that custodial accounts were not allowed for adults. Is it with your bank? Every bank you've tried to work with. Yeah, okay. So yeah, so it's technically, you know, these are called custodial accounts. They're also kind of like considered joint accounts, but you want them to be closed access so that when you're opening an AFI IDA account or for a saver, when you find a financial institutional partner that's going to help you to do that, you want to be able to open accounts for those savers so that they're able to deposit, but they're not able to withdraw without a signature from you all. So there has to be both parties there to withdraw the money, right? Because you don't want your savers to, you know, continue to put money in and then be able to withdraw them at any time. So whatever the bank wants to call that relationship, whatever the bank wants to call that type of account, that's fine. Because but that's the most important piece. And a lot of folks do have trouble kind of identifying banks that understand that or are willing to do that, but they're certainly 100% legal and there's no federal requirements against them. I think if you're hearing that from banks, perhaps you're hearing just misinformation, because there's no laws, there's nothing about that. It is just kind of a matter of sort of setting up that relationship and having the bank understand. So I'm curious if other folks have had a similar, definitely this is not the first time I've heard this from grantees who say they've, you know, gone to a financial institutional partner and their financial institution says, we don't know what kind of account that is, we don't have an ability to set that up. I've definitely heard that from lots of folks and about lots of different banks. So I'm curious if anybody else has also had similar experiences. Any of the panelists, you can feel free to jump in with how you may have addressed that challenge, or anybody on any of the attendees, if you want to type in anything in the chat box as well about that.
This is Amber Miller from WItek, one of the panelists. I actually have never heard that, and we, with our partnership at BMO Harris, we've never had that issue. And also, we do have another program through the state of Wisconsin that is similar, match savings account. It's not through AFI, and those are all set up as custodial accounts through another bank. So I actually have never ran into that issue.
Interesting. Anybody else? Yeah, I don't know. I'm hearing more from him as he's typing in and saying possibly a California issue. This is not actually, I mean, we've got plenty of grantees in California who have established relationships with banks. So perhaps this is something that we can, first of all, I would certainly direct you to talk with your AFI program specialist about this. They have lots of ideas, and they definitely have other grantees who have relationships with banks in the California area, and talk to them first, but also I can follow up with you offline. We do have some lists of common banks that understand about AFI IDA accounts, and we do have some, CFPD has some talking points that we can share with you in terms of how you might approach a bank and share, you know, what the structure of the account is and answer any questions they might have, as well as some sample MOUs. And you can find this information as well on the AFI IDA Resource Center. But definitely, you know, it can be a challenge. I've heard it, I've often heard it to be a challenge in Texas, actually. There's a lot of smaller banks in Texas and larger banks, actually, national banks, where I've heard grantees have a little bit of trouble getting banks on board or financial institutions on board with these types of accounts. But it's certainly really just kind of a bank preference. There's no rules or anything like that. It's the financial institution's preference for why they won't do that. Any other questions for our panelists or any experiences that you want to share? Go ahead and type those into the chat box in our last few minutes here. All right, thank you so much. We've got a few things that we're going to address offline, but otherwise, I think hopefully this has been a really helpful overview of building relationships with your financial institutional partner. As I said previously, this is going to be, this webinar has been recorded. We're going to transcribe it, and then it's going to be available on the IDA Resources website right there. We have it on the screen where you can see it. You can also see our upcoming webinar topics. We have quite a few coming up in this virtual coffee series, including our next topic, which is, I'm looking around at my peers here. Our next webinar topic is going to be around using technology as part of your AFI and in recruiting and enrolling clients, so applications and things of that nature. So if you're interested in kind of how you might streamline some of your processes by using technology, our next webinar is going to be on June 14th at 4 p.m. Same time. It's a Wednesday at 4 p.m. from 4 to 5. Or if you have great ideas and ways that you guys have used technology to streamline your application and enrollment process, get in touch with us because we'd love to share those best practices and ideas with other grantees like yourselves. In the meantime, if you have other questions, of course, go to your AFI program specialist. They're going to be your first source of information, but you can also email the help desk, info@idaresources.org, if you're looking for direct technical assistance or any capacity building, and they'll connect you with folks like us here at CAPD who will be happy to hop on the phone or sometimes even come out for a visit. You can also call that number. That being said, thank you so much, everybody who came and participated. Thanks so much to all of our presenters. Really appreciate you taking the time and effort to share your stories and your best practices and your tips for your fellow grantees. And otherwise, I hope everybody has a fantastic Wednesday, and we'll all be in touch very soon. Take care.